Good evening, everyone, and welcome to GAE Facebook Live. I am Lisa Morgan, a kindergarten teacher and president of GAE.
And I'm Sharon Doe. I'm a high school physics teacher in Augusta, Georgia, and I'm the vice president for the Georgia Association of Educators.
Good evening, I'm Carly Shaw. I'm a middle school physical science teacher in Fulton County, and I am the secretary treasurer of GAE.
I'm Joe Fleming, Director of Government Relations and Program Manager for a number of functions at GAE.
So welcome to, this is just a general update tonight. We haven't done one of those in a while to kind of let you know lots of things that are going on legislatively and in GAE. Joe, we had the census last year. And following the census, we get a special legislative session. Can you tell us what that's all about and what's going to happen?
Sure. So every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau does a count of the American population. There have been lawsuits over how they counted. There are ongoing lawsuits over how they counted, but the data has been received by each state, and concurrent with that count, there need to be adjustments made to legislative and congressional districts based on population shifts. The goal is to have the equal number of residents in each congressional district and an equal number in each House district, equal number in the state Senate. So that's why every 10 years after the count, they redraw legislative political boundaries. That session will begin November 3rd. That's a Wednesday. The last time the General Assembly met in special session to redraw maps was, of course, 10 years ago. That session ran about two and a half weeks long. I'm not expecting it to last that long. I honestly think the majority party is going to come in, already decided on what their maps are going to be. There may be a little show of input from the public and others, from Democrats as well. But I don't see it lasting 2.5 weeks. I think they're doing a lot of their work up front. The real issue is going to be after the General Assembly adjourns their special session, because there certainly will be litigation over these maps. There is every year in every state, and ultimately it'll be the courts that probably either approve or disapprove the maps drawn in Georgia. There are ramifications, of course, of this, and some of those ramifications include we may lose some of our good friends in the General Assembly that are either redistricted out of their district, and they are required to live in their district for the state legislative races, or two or more incumbents might be put in the same district together. So it's kind of a treacherous time, not only for legislators, but also for advocacy groups like ours, and making sure that we stand up for our friends and those who stand for public education and support our teachers. So again, coming up November 3rd, should be over in a week or maybe 2 weeks at the most, I would think. And then we'll see what litigation follows that. But literally right now, incumbents don't know what district they'll be in or what neighborhoods they'll be representing. So it's going to be an opportunity for them to meet some new voters and to expand their political reach. And again, we want to be in a position to support our allies in their new districts or their districts if they remain the same or similar.
So I recall, and this may be a long time ago that this happened, we had more than one representative. For example, where I live, there were like 4 different representatives in the district, and they called it post 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So did we lose that because of a lawsuit? Is that how that happened?
That's a great question. That is sort of my recollection.
Okay.
There are no districts like that now where you have one district with a post 1, post 2. I'll have to look into that. It's a really good question, but I do think the courts did not go for that. Okay. And as a result, we have nothing like that. Okay. That's a really good question back in history.
So not likely that will happen again.
I don't think so. But the other thing that we need to be mindful of and engaged in, or there are going to be some open seat opportunities as well. Now, many of our really good friends are running for higher office. Some are running for some of the statewide offices. Some are running for Congress. A legislator that may be drawn into a district that's not favorable to them or forces them to compete against another incumbent may seek another office. So there are going to be some key open seats that we have to be engaged with, again, to make sure our voice as the voice of education continues to be heard at the Capitol. So we're in the process now of working on a pretty ambitious campaigns and election plan. Part of that is encouraging our members to consider running for office. NEA has a great program called See Educators Run. They help train and support campaigns and candidates that decide to run. You could run for school board, you could run for county commission, you could run for the General Assembly seats. But NEA is there and GAE is there to help those of you out there that might want to consider running for office. We certainly could use more educators at the General Assembly. We have some. We have a number of legislators who have spouses that are educators. We have some that served on the school board, but I'd love to have more classroom teachers and ESPs running for office. So it's something we really want to encourage this year is think about your district. If you see that we need someone with a stronger pro-education voice, think about running yourself, and we will support you in every way we can.
So other than running for an office, what can we as regular citizens do about redistricting? Do we have a say?
We do. The biggest concern around redistricting usually is associated with the dilution of minority voting strength. And there are organizations such as the NAACP and others that are often engaged in those kind of battles. I think we have an obligation to support fairness and inclusion and democracy, and we'll be doing that. But also on a very pragmatic level, where we can, use our lobbying ability to stand for legislators that are our friends. If the maps are showing that they're in a weaker position, we certainly want to fight for them and help them fight for the best district we can get for them. But we'll see how the session goes. There may be opportunities. Honestly, Sharon, I'm thinking in my mind that the session may go really quickly and it's going to happen, and then it's all going to be a court game.
Okay, I'm going to use this opportunity because one of the things we know we want our members to do during the special session and during the regular session coming in January is to join our legislative contact team. And this is our group. It's a committee of GAE, and we want to have one member of GAE, at least one member that lives in every district that says, hey, I will contact my legislator. If there's something, there's a bill up in committee, if there's a bill coming to the floor, I will be the one to talk to my legislator because I live down the road from them. I go to the same church. We're in the same town. So if you are willing to assist with that, and we're going to be sending this out several times, we want you to send an email, and this is an easy email address to remember. Send it to gr@gae.com and just in the subject line, put LCT and give us your name and your contact information, and we will sign you up and you will be hearing from us soon. And I will put that in the comments. So,
Lisa, this is so important. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Isn't it grgae.org?
Yes, ma'am. Did I say it wrong?
You said .com.
Oh,
Because I put it in her mind earlier.
You did.
This is so important. The work that I do at the state capitol and that Lisa does down there, is one thing, and it's important because you have to have a presence there and be effective at the Capitol. But there is no substitute for our educators and our members' voice at the hometown level. Like Lisa said, you may get your haircut at their barbershop where they go. You may bump into them at church or to the grocery store, but having that hometown expert and somebody that is cultivating a relationship with them. You don't have to, don't think you have to already have a relationship to sign up. We're going to help you every step of the way, but we would like you to be the person that a legislator calls when there's an education bill coming up. Dr. Doe, I'm your state senator. What do you think about this bill? And of course, through our communications during the session, we will keep you up to speed on what's going on legislatively, but there's no substitute for that hometown grassroots voice.
We want our members to be the person, that education expert that they are going to call, that they're going to send, that they're going to have your phone number and send you a text and say, why does GAE support this, or why does GAE oppose that? And you have the answer and you're ready to say, this is why, and this is what will happen in my classroom.
Or you don't have the answer, and you can contact us and we'll help you out. But you don't need to have political experience. You don't have to have an existing relationship. Well, that would be terrific. And you don't have to be the thesaurus on everything or the encyclopedia for everything that's coming up. We'll arm you with the information. So if you don't know the answer, give us a call.
There's a commercial on TV that gives a great visual of what redistricting is and drawing the lines with the teacher in the classroom. And he has the tape on the floor, and sometimes the tape goes in zigzag lines. Sometimes the tape is in a straight line, but every little compartment is a different size. And some of it is really a different shapes that you're not used to. And it made me think, well, why are districts drawn like this? And I think you gave a great answer when you said it dilutes certain votes. And I think that's one of the main purposes of redistricting, redrawing those lines.
Sure. There are literally districts across the country where 2 or 3 households are carved into a district to bring specific voters into or out of that a neighboring district. And you can see examples all over the country of really real life zigzag districts. In some cases, the parts of the district don't even touch each other. So there's some strange things out there. We've only seen one map so far. It may have been trial balloon, but the Senate did release a version of a congressional district map. It looks fairly contiguous, which is usually one of the standards that judges look at, is fairly compact and communities of interest. But you take that microscope in closer and closer, and you can begin to see that they're intentionally including or excluding neighborhoods, depending on what their voter profile is, and other demographic information. Yeah.
Of course they are. They want to win.
Yeah.
And why is this legal? Why is it legal for them to do it like that?
Well, it's been a part of our country since 1776. Gerrymandering is an old term for drawing these kind of districts. The courts have and I'm not a lawyer, but the courts have kind of shifted in their thinking in some ways. At one point, there was a real effort to pack minority voters into one district so that they would ensure minority representation. Then there was kind of a movement out of the courts to not do so much of that, so that the influence is spread out over more districts. Generally, it seems to come along of whether there are communities of interest, whether there's dilution of minority voting strength, and egregious cases of maybe maximizing the majority party's power. So where the courts go this year with these kind of things remains to be seen. But so long as states like Georgia allow the legislature to draw maps, you're going to have this, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. There are like 12 states in the country, I think, that have a nonpartisan commission drawing districts. But even that process gets politicized. But it's probably less political than when political parties draw the maps.
So it's basically legalized cheating.
I'm not going to say that, but you certainly can.
So if we want to fix that, that's going to take something federal legislation probably to have everybody. Yeah.
And so one other major difference that Mike McGonigal, our attorney, has pointed out is that in the past, when Georgia has drawn new district lines, it required pre-approval from the U.S. Department of Justice. Right. The Supreme Court threw that out. So the maps don't need pre-approval. They may wind their way through the judicial process and end up before the Supreme Court, for example. But that's a big difference in the whole process, is not having the pre-approval from the Justice Department. I will say this also, kind of segue, that if this is where I hope Lisa wants to go. One of the things about this session that's going to be important, in addition to redistricting, is teeing up our legislative agenda for the regular session, which begins on January 10th of next year. Those legislators that are not on a redistricting committee are going to have some time on their hands. And so we're planning to maximize our effort at the Capitol to educate on things like waivers and vouchers and the need to fully fund QBE this year after taking an $800 million budget cut over the last two budgets, and teacher pay raises, things of that nature, and a lot of other issues are coming up. So we've got a captive audience all in Atlanta, and it's going to be a good time for us to fan out and do some educating and lining things up for January.
Joe, you brought up waivers. So I went ahead and put in the chat, in the comments, the registration link for our next Rights at Night, next Tuesday night. We're going to be talking about those waivers. I will tell you that I know that educators are feeling the impact of those waivers this year. I've been in schools the last 2 weeks and heard from elementary teachers who have lost their duty-free lunch, and they're like, I thought it was state law. I'm supposed to give my 30 minutes duty-free lunch. So I said, well, yeah, it is state law, but we got these little things called waivers, and your district has a waiver from duty-free lunch. And so, yes, you are with your students from the time they walk in the door until the time they leave. And yeah, you hope you snag somebody as they're walking down the hall to give you a restroom break. So Tuesday night, we'll be talking about that waiver and lots more. What I want everybody to think about, put out there, fair dismissal rights. We don't have tenure here in Georgia, but if you have been teaching for 4 years in the same system, you have fair dismissal rights. And that is one of the things that is being waived. So I hope everyone will join us and learn more about what these waivers are and what they mean and where we are hopefully going with them.
And Madam President, can you give us the link to the website where we can go and see what waivers our district has applied for and has been approved?
Sharon, I can, but let me tell you what's going on. The Department of Education announced this summer at the GAE conference that they're not even requiring the district to apply for the waiver anymore. They are saying, yeah, they
so
are.
How will the regular employees find out about what has been waived and what hasn't?
The Department of Education is just saying, you've got a waiver for everything.
Whoa.
Yeah,
And so it's up to the superintendent and the board, the local boards, to decide what they want to pick and choose to waive.
no. The
be
Department of
like that.
Education is saying you have a waiver for everything. And if you choose to use that waiver, you have it. If you don't choose to use it, but you have a waiver for everything.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
So they can either use the waiver or not at their own discretion.
right.
That's what it appears
Wow.
like. So kind of like a charter school system.
Mhm.
Just automatically comes, you just get these waivers. I don't know how much justification they're going to require to do it. Probably none, it sounds like, or rationale or what academic measures they may decide to attach to this are supposed to be waivers granted for improvement in student scholastic scores. Lisa, I just posted a link that gives some of that information that Sharon mentioned. It is a dated link, not updated.
Yep.
But it will give you an idea of some of the districts that have waivers, what the kind of waivers exist now. But I don't know if your camera can pan over to your poster over there, Lisa, but
It's not on the wall yet in my new office.
all right.
So
But-
does that render parts of Title 20 null and void?
Mhm.
Except for federal laws, civil rights laws, and occupational safety and things like that. But class size, yes. EE requirements, yes. Duty-free lunch, fair dismissal. Lisa's got I mean, there are hundreds of them, really.
What I said, Sharon, here's how I'm describing it. I think we should describe it to the legislators like, if you're introducing an education bill, have fun. You're trying to do something that you think is going to help public education. But it doesn't matter what you do, because the school board and the superintendent have a waiver, which is an automatic veto of everything the legislature passes.
Yeah, you're right, Lisa. Every legislator ought to be concerned about this, because whatever they pass, a local school board can say, man, we don't feel like following that law.
So that basically guts some of our protections.
All of our protections.
Everybody should be concerned about that. The
Yes.
whole community, everybody that has anything to do with the school system.
Yeah.
Parents,
Parents do,
employees,
yeah.
everybody.
Mhm. Yep.
It's amazing when you think about it. And every time we talk to a legislator or even a GA member, they're shocked to know that this actually is happening now. And they should be.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm just speechless. Wow.
Oh, but they did add one thing that can't be waived, and that is the early intervention program. They waived that. They said you can't waive the qualification for the early intervention program, because school systems were qualifying students. You know, when in elementary, we do like a checklist, or you have a test score to qualify them for early intervention. And, we always have those kids that are borderline. They don't quite make it, they need 7 out of whatever to qualify for early intervention. And that child that has 6, or they need a score below 200 and their score is 202. And we always know those children need extra help.
Mhm.
Districts were ignoring that and qualifying them and giving the kids the extra help they need. And it was costing the state more money. So guess what? They can't waive the EIP qualification anymore. So they have to hold strictly to that, where districts were using the waivers to help our students because it was costing more money. So that tells me these waivers aren't about helping our kids. They aren't about helping educators. They're giving them the waivers because they think they're saving money. And it's about the money and not our students. It's not really about student achievement. It's about saving money, which is how all the waivers started originally anyway. So Rights at Night next Tuesday, we'll be talking more about this. We'll be, I'll have my art project that night, Joe. It was 25 pages printed out, put together to make the poster. But we want you to register and join us next Tuesday to learn more about these waivers, the different things they've waived, and how we're going to be able to handle them. Joe, let's talk about something good that may pass this year. Yeah, and that I know they've been having hearings around the state about the age of compulsory attendance. What do we think is going to happen with that one?
So for a number of years now, at least 10, I think, and maybe more, legislation has been introduced to raise the age of mandatory education from 16 to 17 years of age. In the past, I'm not sure why it got tripped up. I think there were concerns maybe over the cost. But there is a bill this year introduced by Senator Lester Jackson, who's actually running for higher office this year himself, but will be in the Senate this January. SB 3. SB 3 is a bill that simply says kids must remain in school till the age of 17. The chairman of the study committee looking at that is also the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Chairman Chuck Payne. Chuck is a Republican. He's very, very supportive of this bill. He says the fiscal note has been done on it, and that it's about $12 million a year, which is a really pretty small amount for what could potentially be a real difference maker in some kids' lives. There are a number of Republicans on the Education Committee who are supporting this. Some very conservative Republicans, and I think there's a real chance that this might pass this year. I believe it will pass committee. It may be up to the lieutenant governor and the Senate leadership to decide, but we don't live in the agrarian days now where something like this may have been more fitting for the time. Just so you know, Chairman Payne comes from the juvenile justice world. He worked 30 years in juvenile justice as a probation officer. So that's the lens that he looks at this problem through. John Albers, Republican from Alpharetta, who's not our friend on vouchers, but has introduced this bill in the past and is supportive of it today. So they may, and I guess I should add this about the special session. We've been told that the regular committees can, and in some cases will, meet during the special session. They cannot advance a bill until they're in regular session in January, but they could have hearings, for example. And there've been 4 hearings on SB 3. So I think there's a real chance that this could move forward for the first time. And Georgia's getting into a shrinking number of states that have 16 as the maximum age of compulsory education. Some states have it, I think it was one state that has it at 19, maybe even 20. Even some of our neighboring states have it at 17 or 18. So that'll be something to watch and kind of an exciting opportunity to do something really meaningful that really costs the state very, very little.
I would argue that it costs the state $0, because we should be educating these kids and not allowing them to drop out anyway. So, it's not any more than what we should have been spending to educate them anyway. So that basically, that's the bottom line result. Now our students can drop out at 16 and just say, I'm done. And this would make that age be 17.
And I think Chairman Payne looks at it exactly like you do. It's an investment,
Right.
not an expenditure.
Right. We should be educating these children. They should be in school if they haven't graduated yet. Okay. So Another thing that we've been hearing about is exposure to lead. And I know my district tested all our schools as recently as 5 years ago for lead in our schools. And did find an issue in some schools. So what are they looking at with that?
So State Representative Katie Dempsey from Rome, Georgia, has headed up a study committee on childhood exposure to lead. They've had 3 or 4 meetings. They've got one actually tomorrow, which you can watch if you go to the Georgia General Assembly website. It'll be there on the main page, a link to watch it. They've been focusing in on exactly what the title of the committee is, childhood exposure to lead, including things like home paint and other exposure to children, and some related to classrooms. So it will be interesting to see what the study committee recommends in terms of legislation or regulatory action. But it appears that in some school district, there's still issues with lead paint maybe, and lead in the water system as well. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll be certainly following it tomorrow. But Representative Dempsey is a terrific chairman, very fair, very determined, and she really has her heart invested in this. So I'm hoping for some really good things to come out of this committee. We'll have a report in our next legislative update about the committee and the direction that they're going in.
Okay.
So I think the concern is how the lead will affect the children's brain development, because I think I read an article about how lead can cause learning problems for children in schools, particularly the younger children, because sometimes when there's lead in paint, children being small or, unsupervised, they may pick up paint chips and they may eat the paint chips, because sometimes that's what kids do.
Kids put everything in their mouths, especially our little ones. But, when they did the testing on the water in our schools, we were actually surprised, because the building I taught in, there was an older part of the building that was built like in the 1950s. And then there was a new part of the building that was built in like 1990. And where they found concerns with lead in the water, in our water fountains, was not in the older section of the building, but in the newer section.
Oh.
Which was, wasn't what we expected to happen.
Yeah, that's a plot twist there.
So I think we've known about lead as an issue for a while, but maybe it's not been corrected in as many of our buildings as we should. And I know I've seen some buildings that were like my building, probably built in the 1950s or so, and they're still being used as schools across our state. So they probably have some things in there that we know now probably shouldn't be in them.
So just based on what the health experts have said in testifying, yes, it is still an issue. And it's largely taken, it's largely heard from health experts so far on those problems. So I put a link there, Lisa, if you want to share it, which is the agenda and video link for the committee tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Okay, I just got to say this. Everybody look and give Michael Griff Murray a real ugly look. He put in the comments that we all look worn down.
Oh, I think everybody looks great.
As much as I thought this year was going to be easier because last year was so difficult, this year has been pretty tough. The kids that we teach are struggling and they're not used to being in school.
Right.
Because for me, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, their sixth grade year ended early and they sent them home. Seventh grade, some of them were at home doing online the whole time. And now they're back in eighth grade. They're trying to get used to being back in school and doing the level of work and the caliber of work that we do on a regular basis. They just weren't ready yet. And now that they're getting used to it, it's been a struggle. And I'm worn out. I am worn out. I'm tired.
Well, and Carly, I think part of that too is, and I'll just be blunt about this. And I've heard post-COVID, I've heard, we're back to normal. We're not back to normal. COVID is still there. And I don't think our systems have acknowledged the social and emotional toll that the pandemic has taken on educators and students. And we're coming up on the holidays, and I've been trying to write my letter for the magazine for 2 days. The number of deaths that we've had in Georgia, I would think that probably every educator and every student has been impacted, whether it was a close relative or friend or somebody they know from church. I think everybody's been impacted, and we're coming up on the holidays, which is going to make that even more. And it hadn't been acknowledged. It was just, we're back to normal. Everybody come back and do everything normal, do school like we've always done school, and expect the kids to jump right back in. And we haven't really acknowledged or taken the time to allow everyone to deal with the stress and those impacts.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. Every school I was in, Carly, just like you, educators said, I'm tired. I'm end of the year tired, and it's the end of October, and I think that's part of it. I do. Sharon, is that happening at your school too?
Absolutely. And in my district, last week, we lost an administrator at the school that I used to work at from COVID. And I mean, he was a GAE member as well. So that's like family, because he was active in the local, he was a building rep.
Yeah.
And it just caught everybody by surprise. We knew it could happen, but some people were just under the impression that, hey, we're vaccinated. I know it's a possibility that we could get it. And when it hits home to somebody you actually know, somebody you've worked with, it's a different feel. And I think that's why educators and students need extra mental health support as well.
Yeah.
Because it's stressful knowing that you're trying to do your job, but at the same time, you're working during a pandemic. And then you got to worry about if you're bringing something home to your family.
And there are no right answers right now, but I think that's something that all our systems need to acknowledge and actually take some time and, for everyone. And I saw where somebody said our systems are telling you, you need some self-care, but you're not giving me any time for self-care because the expectations of what I'm supposed to be doing has remained exactly the same.
Or even increased.
add more, yeah,
Or
or
increased.
increased.
Or increased, yes. So, yeah.
Talk about ESPs just for a moment. And I know National Education Week's coming up.
Right.
And we've got an ESP Day coming up November 17th. Hoping to do something at the Capitol.
Okay.
I mean, one of the tough things about, I would love to have folks come down to the Capitol. Of course, it's still a COVID environment, but let's see if we can get a resolution recognizing the great work that all of our educators have done during this COVID time.
Definitely.
And Lisa, I didn't know if you want to say anything about Rise Awards or if that's all a secret society.
Well, I'll talk about the Rise Award because I want to talk about something else related to the Rise Award. And we'll talk about the other days for American Education Week in a moment. The Rise Awards is the national award for our education support professionals. And nominations were made to the Department of Education. And I did get to do the judging last week, read about some wonderful people. Liberty County, I read about 3 different educators from Liberty County that were nominated. I read about an educator in Murray County, different areas across the state. And so I turned that in. The Department of Education will be giving Governor Kemp the finalists, and then Governor Kemp will choose 1 or 2 of those to nominate for the national award. And that is through the U.S. Department of Education. But GAE also has an ESP of the Year award. So I kind of want to shout that out to everybody. Your local organization can nominate someone for that award. A GAE committee can nominate someone. Or if you are a GAE member and you think you know an ESP, a bus driver, cafeteria worker, custodian, and you say this person needs to win the GAE ESP of the Year, you can start a petition. And if you and 19 of your friends who are also GAE members sign that petition and complete the application, that's all it takes to consider them. So I know many of our ESPs, there's 19 members in their school that might want to band together and say, this is the person. And I will put the link for those awards. I'm going to have to look it up, but I will put the link for that application in the comments so everybody can find them. Because Carly, I know you've got some ESPs in your school that could be one of those people, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I have some amazing ESPs in my school. We have some really hardworking people that do so much more and go above and beyond. So I definitely think that there'll be some from my school.
Sharon, you got somebody in your building you're thinking about? I hope you do.
You know I do. And not only do they do a great job in our school building, they do a great job in the community, because it's not just about what they do in the school. They go outside in the community and still interact and help the children and still do community service projects with the children. A couple of weeks ago, we had a cleanup down at the little holding pond. Because the kids are walking by, so trash gets thrown sometimes. And a lot of times, since they're coming across a bridge and down a little hill, sometimes the trash flows down. And not only did they clean the trash out of the water around the whole holding pond, because sometimes people go there and I guess they're having picnics, because I see them sitting out there. A lot of ducks and things are there. So it's a beautiful sight, and it's right as you're entering our school grounds. And so on the weekend, 2 weeks ago, they had a cleanup there, and it was totally organized by the students, and we came if we wanted to. And so our students take charge, and I was glad to see our ESPs there, which they usually are anyway, because we have the kind of ESPs, they show up to the school functions for the kids. So they do go above and beyond. It's not just classroom teachers, it's not just administrators. Our ESPs are there.
Okay, so I'm going to, the purpose of our award is to recognize an individual who shows outstanding accomplishments in the following areas: professional practice, advocacy and association involvement, community engagement, personal achievement, and enhancement of the ESP image. And there's 5 pages of information, and I put the link in the comments. So this is my call for everyone to please, please, please nominate some of those ESPs in your buildings, in your local, in your school, so that we will have somebody that we can honor at our representative assembly as our ESP of the year. And so we can nominate them for the national award. And somebody in the comments said half the kids in their school are tardy because they are short. Guess what, y'all? Bus drivers. And that seems to be a statewide problem. Everywhere I have been, I have seen signs that they need bus drivers. So yeah, it is a big issue, and I think it's an issue that's going to be there because if you have that CDL right now, there are other industries that pay a lot more for somebody that has their CDL than driving a school bus.
Well, in my district, they kind of combated that problem by offering teachers training to get their CDL license so that they can fill in as bus drivers as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
For a supplement salary?
Yes, yes. And the thing about it was they got to keep the bus at the school. So they actually had a bus on site for field trips now. As long as they're back by a certain time.
I don't think I could drive a bus.
Well, you know, in South Carolina, the seniors used to drive the bus.
Mhm.
A long time ago, the seniors used to drive the bus.
Wouldn't want to pay those insurance rates.
That sounds like somebody who has a driver in that age bracket.
And one of them being a boy. Oh, boy.
Oh. Okay, let's talk about the other days for American Education Week, because it is the full week. Monday, November 15th is the kickoff day. And so that day there's artwork we can share. I like this suggestion for celebrating that day, to have our students write what I would do if I were the school principal. I think that we might get some interesting, I know we get interesting comments from teachers, but what the students would do. Tuesday is Family Day. We've already said Wednesday's Education Support Professionals Day. And Thursday is Educator for a Day. And that normally would be when we would invite some of those legislators at the Capitol to come to our classrooms and teach for a day. But with COVID, I know we're probably not going to be doing that in most places. But they could still visit virtually. And Friday is another group of educators that seem to be in short supply here in Georgia, and that is Substitute Educators Day.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get a substitute.
Yes. And that's even after they have increased the pay. So American Education Week is November 15th through the 19th this year. And we hope you will be celebrating in your school, honoring, particularly on Wednesday, the 17th, our ESPs. And that will be our Facebook Live that night. So we will definitely have some ESPs for Facebook Live that week. And I'm excited about that. The other thing I think we need to let our members that are watching know, you should have received this past weekend, maybe Saturday, your GAE e-news, and you need to look in there for links. District 1, 2, and 3 for GAE districts have district meetings next week. And so we want to make sure you know about those and that you register and sign up to attend those if you want to learn more about what's happening inside GAE internally. So we have just a few minutes left. We had lots and lots of updates tonight. So let's talk about something fun. Carly, we know yesterday was your birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So tell us something fun. What did you do to celebrate?
Well, my coworkers surprised me with a cake and a balloon and nice gifts. And my husband had chocolate covered strawberries delivered to the school. That was super nice. And I went out and had Korean barbecue last night. It was amazing. So it was a really good birthday.
That sounds fun. And we know next week is going to be Halloween. So anybody got any plans? Anybody doing something fun for Halloween?
I'm going to the Atlanta Falcon game on Halloween day night.
Oh,
It's teacher appreciation night for the Atlanta Falcons.
it
And
is.
they mailed me, let me get it. I'll give them a little plug. I
Yeah,
bought tickets to the game and they sent me a bag that is insulated and it has an Atlanta Falcon on it. So I got that as part of my ticket.
okay, so I have to ask this question. It's Educator Day at the Atlanta Falcons. Who are they playing?
Carolina Panthers.
Okay. Joe, you got some plans?
For Halloween,
Sure, anything. Relaxing?
I'm a grump. I usually turn the lights off and hide. I don't have any plans right now. The kids.
I don't even have to do that. I've lived in my house, and if you're one of my neighbor kids watching, if you come knock, I'll have some candy. I have lived in my house for 23 years now, and I have never had any kids come knock on my door trick-or-treating.
Serious, really? So shocked by that.
Really, really.
I didn't have many last year, but it may be because the lights are all off. I don't know. But
My neighbors do, however, shoot off fireworks for every holiday. So we'll probably have fireworks Saturday night after it gets really good and dark.
I do want to say something happy though.
Yes.
About GAE and what an exciting time it is right now. We've hired a number of new UDs. We've got a new energy. Membership recruitment is just exploding. Thanks to our members and to Carly and Dr. Doe and Lisa and Dr. Carter. It's really, there's a real excitement, I think, going on at GAE, and that makes me happy. I'm really happy to see a re-energized organization striving for their best.
Sharon?
I have absolutely no plans for Halloween. I will be somewhere doing lesson plans.
Carly, you're going to do something fun, right? Oh, no, you already said you're going to the Falcons game. Okay.
I'm going to do Atlanta United the day before.
Okay, so Carly's just going to have a sports weekend. That's going to be it, a sports weekend. Joe, you brought up some exciting things happening. So let's talk about the other exciting thing we have going on. And that is for our aspiring educators. Yes. If you are an aspiring educator, we now have a scholarship program for memberships for our aspiring educators. And if you are a veteran educator and would like to sponsor an aspiring educator member, you can do that. And there will be, I'm not going to put this in the comments. There will be more information in your No magazine that you will be receiving soon. And we want everyone to sign up, and we want you to send a donation and sponsor an aspiring educator member. We all remember what that was like being in school, working towards your certification. We all remember what it was like being a college student. I saw somebody talking about the food we always used to eat as college students. So if we can help some of our aspiring educators become members of our association, that's what we want to do. I was an aspiring educator member, so many years ago. And so we want to help our aspiring educators be members of the association. And I think we're getting close to the end. So Carly, what's your good news to leave us with? And then we'll go to Sharon, because she always has something inspiring.
She does. I'm jealous. Well, I'm very excited because my daughter is coming home for Thanksgiving. I cannot wait to see her. She moved to Wisconsin and she's doing fantastic, and her mom misses her very much. So I'm looking forward to that.
Joe, you got any good news expiring?
Think that just the view doesn't change much, but I don't think so. Let me think. No, not really.
Okay, Sharon.
Well, my good news is that RCAE in the last 2 weeks has added 214 new members. Thank you so much for GAE leadership and all the new UniServes. And Richmond County has a new UniServe director. So thank you, Mr. Murray. And thank you, Dr. Carter. And thank you, Madam President, as well as Skylar and Tony. Thank you all so much. They came down. We welcome them with open arms. And this Sunday, we're having a meet and greet at Diamond Lakes Park for our new RCAE officers. And Dr. Carter, Madam President, the new UniServe, Mr. Murray, you're all invited to come. And I sent you the invitation, I think over the weekend.
Okay, great. And so what I'm going to say to piggyback off that before we finish this evening, we loved being in Richmond. If you are in another area and you want to invite us, we would love to come there as well and spread the good news about how wonderful it is to be a GAE member and everything GAE is doing for public education here in Georgia. So we will be back on the first Wednesday of November, which will be Wednesday, November 3rd, correct? And that is the day this special legislative session starts. So I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about that. And also, we'll talk some more about American Education Week and these darn waivers. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be talking about that for a while. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening, and we will see you Wednesday, November 3rd.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.